Hello and welcome to this book summary where we're looking at Good to Great by Jim Collins. Now, some companies have always been great, such as Coca-Cola, but this book isn't about this type of company. It's about companies who were good for a long period of time and then somehow became great for a long period of time. Now, to find those companies, Collins examined over 1,400 companies over a 14-year period. Now, from this research, 11 great companies were found, and the question this book attempts to answer is, how did these companies become great, and are those lessons repeatable? Well, the answer is surprisingly simple, pragmatic, and straightforward. Now, you can see a summary of the good to great process in this diagram. And if I had to describe or sum up the concept of the book in a single word, that word would be discipline. So to go from a good company to a great company, you need disciplined people, disciplined thought, and disciplined action. So disciplined people means getting the right people and keeping them focused on excellence. Disciplined thought means being honest about the facts and avoid getting sidetracked. And finally, disciplined action means understanding what is important to achieve and what isn't important. So as you can see from the diagram, as we move from good to great, there is this thing called the flywheel effect. So the first three concepts slowly build the momentum of this flywheel. And then there's a breakthrough and the momentum is almost self-fulfilling. Now, a company can spend years of consistent effort to get the flywheel up to speed, but once the flywheel is up to speed, the company can sustain many years of breakthrough performance. Now, the book is about being great, not simply good, and Collins describes this as good being the enemy of great. Now, many people and many companies settle for good because it's easier. Many companies don't even try to be great. They're not striving to be the best in the industry, and that opens the doors to competitors. Now, being the best means there is absolutely no room for mediocre thinking. And it's the same in our lives as well. You know, very few people lead great lives, and that's because they're very happy living a good life. So there's a lot to cover in this summary. So let's jump in and look at the first of our 6 concepts, level 5 leadership. Now, the first concept in the book is level 5 leadership. Every company Collins studied had the same type of leader, and he called these level 5 leaders. Now, if you think about an organizational hierarchy, the lowest level of leadership is the highly capable individual. And these are people who contribute using their skills, their know-how, and their good work habits. Now, if you move up a step in the hierarchy, the next level is a contributing team member. These are people who are able to use their skills and knowledge to help the team succeed. The next level is competent manager, and these are managers capable of organizing their team to efficiently reach a predetermined objective. And if we go up another level, we get to level 4, which is effective leaders. Now, this is where the majority of leaders can be found. They're able to create the commitment from their team to vigorously pursue a clear and compelling vision. They're also able to create high-performance teams. But above this, there's another level, and that's level 5 leadership. And these are the truly great leaders. They have the abilities of the other 4 levels, plus a unique combination of will and humility. And it's this combination of will and humility that makes them great. Now, the behaviors of level 5 leaders that set them apart include, firstly, paradox. They're super ambitious, but their ambition is for the organization to excel, not for themselves. Now, at the same time, they tend to be modest about what they've personally contributed, and they're self-effacing. They're driven. Now, they're actually fanatically driven, obsessed even, to produce exceptional results. But this obsession is for sustainable results. And the key word here is really sustainable. This isn't the result of a one-off heroic effort, their drive is really consistent to be excellent. Next, they build successors, and they build these successors to be even more successful than they are. And that's in stark contrast to level 4 leaders who will sometimes set up their successors for failure in order so they can make themselves look good. Next, they share praise. So they share the praise amongst the team when things go well, and at the same time, they take the blame when things go wrong. And by sharing the praise and taking the blame, they make their team extremely loyal and committed to them. They're also normal people. So they don't have larger than life personalities, and they're not celebrities. They're just basically normal individuals. And finally, they come from within the organization. And that's because their greatness tends to come from quiet, hard work rather than heroic acts. And that's why it makes sense that they should come from within the organization. Now, you obviously should try and develop these traits yourself if you want to become a level 5 leader. But if you're already a leader and you're trying to encourage level 5 leaders in your organization, there's a few things you can do. First, you can look for great results without an individual claiming the credit, because you may just already have a level 5 leader working for you. Obviously, you can practice the concepts in this book because that's going to encourage the development of level 5 leaders. Next, you can hire from within. And it's a big temptation to recruit externally. But if you want to recruit level 5 leaders, it makes more sense to hire from within. And finally, and pretty obviously, you should invest in personal development, coaching, and mentoring for your team members and the organization as a whole. So the second concept of the book is first who, then what. And this is the second concept of disciplined people. Now, it's not just the quality of leadership that is important to be great. The quality of all the other people in the team is equally as important. So what does first who and then what actually mean? Well, it's the very opposite of what we normally think of planning as being. It means that you don't decide what you want to do and then get the people you need to do it. Instead, you do the opposite. You start by getting the right people into the organization and the wrong people out. So this is kind of important. Getting the right people takes precedence over strategy, over vision, over almost everything. So first you get the right people, then you let them work out where you're going to go, what you're going to do, and how you're going to do it. So first who and then what means shifting your mindset to realize that people are not your most valuable asset. It's the right people that are your most valuable asset. So the benefits of putting the who before what include it's easier to change direction because people are in the organization because of who they get to work with rather than what they're working on. You won't have to waste time and energy motivating and managing your team. And that's because they'll be self-motivating and manage themselves. And finally, it gives the organization the potential to become great. A company with the wrong people can never become great. So as part of first who and then what, Colin gives us 3 principles we can follow. So principle 1, when in doubt, don't hire, keep looking. Now, great companies are prepared to grow only at the rate at which they can hire the right people. So principle 2, when you know you need to make a change in personnel, act right away. So you must let go of the wrong people. It's not fair on them, and it's not fair on the organization to keep them around. But just a word of caution here, don't overlook the possibility that the right person might just be in the wrong position. And actually, principles 1 and principles 2 can be summarized as hire slow, but fire fast. Principle 3, put your best people on your biggest opportunities. Now, managing problems well can make your organization good, but only exploiting opportunities can make you great. So put your best people precisely where they can generate the biggest opportunities. So the next concept, the third concept from the book, is confront the brutal facts. Now, if you have level 5 leadership and you have the right people, then the whole organization is strong enough to be able to put the company performance ahead of their own ego. And that enables you to confront the brutal facts without losing faith that the company will be successful. So great results can only be achieved when you're making lots of good decisions and then executing well. So to make good decisions, you need to confront the facts, even if those facts are brutal and uncomfortable. To avoid distorting the facts, you need an atmosphere where the truth is welcomed. And there are 4 practices to help you create this atmosphere. So the first practice is to lead with questions, not with answers. So the leaders of good to great companies start by assuming they don't know what's required. They ask questions until a picture of reality and its implications emerges. The continued use of probing questions slowly brings the reality to the surface as they ask more and more questions. And that's kind of the opposite of what superstar leaders who assume they already have all the answers tend to do. These leaders are likely to make bad decisions because they don't have a true understanding of the facts. So the next practice is engage with dialogue and debate, not coercion. And, by all means have debate, have heated discussions, even agree to disagree, but great leaders never coerce people into seeing things in their way. Third practice is conduct autopsies without blame and use them to learn. Now, even in great companies, things can and will go wrong. The best companies make mistakes, but great companies don't try to hide these mistakes. Rather, they try and learn from them. So trying to blame someone for the mistake doesn't even enter into the conscious thoughts of good to great leaders. The benefits of confronting the brutal facts include that the organization becomes more resilient. People become excited about the chance to take on a challenge that seems impossible. It can create duality. So on the one hand, people accept the brutal facts, but on the other hand, they remain faithful that the company will ultimately be successful, even if it takes many years. Leaders will be fact-led rather than personality-led, and it keeps motivation high because the reality is that pretending that the realities of the marketplace don't exist will sap everyone's motivation. People will just be going through the motions. So in summary, confronting the brutal facts means it's fine to have an ambitious destination in mind, but as long as you continually adapt your plan every day as new brutal facts emerge. So the fourth concept from the book is that of the Hedgehog Concept. And to explain this concept, let's look at the difference between a fox and a hedgehog. Now, a fox is a very clever creature. It sees the world in all of its complexity, and it can pursue many goals at the same time. Now, conversely, a hedgehog is a much more simple creature. It doesn't get bogged down by all the complexity of the world. In fact, it's really only able to do one thing well, and that is to curl up into a ball and protect itself. Hedgehogs are not even capable of seeing the complexity of the world. All they see is a single goal, and they execute to achieve that goal. Now, good to great companies behave in a similar way to the hedgehog. They stick to doing what they're best at, and they avoid getting distracted. And actually, it's incredibly easy to get distracted, with even great companies having to fight hard to stop it from happening. So, how does your organization become more like a hedgehog and less like a fox? Well, you can find your inner hedgehog at the intersection of these 3 questions. What do you feel most passionate about? What can you be best in the world at? And finally, what drives your economic engine? So, number 1, what do you feel most passionate about? So this is an important question because passion is going to be hugely motivating. Now, great companies don't tell their employees what to be passionate about. They find what their employees are already passionate about and then look for projects aligned to those passions. The second question is, what can you be best in the world at? And this is about more than just developing a great core competency. It's about deciding on the one key area that your business can do better than any other business. And it's then about focusing on this area exclusively so that nobody can match you, nobody can even come close. And one thing to note here is that this is about focusing on what you can be the best at, not what you want to be the best at. And the final question is, what drives your economic engine? So what is the one factor that creates money for your organization? So you can think of the economic engine as being like the blood that flows through our bodies. It doesn't define us, and it's not who we are or what we're about, but without it, we simply can't survive very long. So if the company is working at the intersection of all three questions of passion, of being the best, in an area where money can be created, then it's going to be highly likely that the company will be successful. Now, good to great companies set their goals based on their hedgehog concept. And that's very, very different from setting your goals based on, for example, the desire to grow or to expand. Now, it takes time to develop your hedgehog concept. It's not going to happen overnight in a great flash of brilliant inspiration. And actually, in the book, Colin says it may take typically 4 years to find your hedgehog concept. So the fifth step of the book is developing a culture of discipline. So if you think about what we've looked at already, we can say that having discipline of people eliminates the need for hierarchy. And we can say that having discipline of thought keeps everyone on track. But now if we move to discipline of action, that eliminates the need for bureaucracy. And this means that there's no need to excessively control the actions of your people because they have this disciplined thought. Now, most companies fail not because of the lack of opportunity, but because there is too much opportunity and they spread themselves too thinly. A culture of discipline means having the organization full of people who will take action consistent with the hedgehog principle. Now, don't make the mistake of many executives mistaking control for discipline. Now, to support a culture of discipline, you can do 5 things. And the first is to build a culture of freedom and responsibility, but within a defined framework. So you'll free up your time if you put in place boundaries, but let people decide for themselves how to act within these boundaries. All you'll actually have to do is manage the boundaries or the system itself. And really the best way to explain this is by using the example of an airline pilot. So the pilot is guided by air traffic control, but the pilot has ultimate responsibility within that system for the safety of the passengers, the crew, and obviously the craft as well. The second thing you need to do is get the right people on board, those that have the will to achieve their responsibilities. So in essence, this is about what we've already covered: disciplined people, disciplined thought, and disciplined action. You need the right people confronting the brutal facts, following the hedgehog concept, and then having the discipline to do what needs to be done to reach their objectives. The third thing you need to do is build a strong culture, but not a dictatorship. And this is about, it's not about driving your team relentlessly. It's more about creating a culture where the team wants to achieve. And obviously the hedgehog concept will help you here, as it keeps everyone really, really focused. The fourth thing you want to do is exercise extreme focus in adhering to your hedgehog concept. Now, a good saying is that if you want to be average, start by trying to be great at lots of things. Good to great companies keep focused on their hedgehog concept and basically avoid everything else. And paradoxically, this focus can actually create more opportunities for growth than if you try to spread yourself too thinly or if you try to do everything. And the final thing you need to do or should consider doing, is to create a stop doing list. Create a list of things you'll stop doing so you can better focus on your hedgehog concept. And maybe one of the things you could do is you could change the way you plan. So instead of thinking which projects should get which people, think which projects support your hedgehog concept. Those that do, give them more funding. Those that don't support the hedgehog concept, get less funding, or even don't bother doing them at all. Now, a key takeaway from this chapter is that discipline on its own is pointless. There are many examples from history where people have marched with discipline into disaster. The key to going from good to great is to get the right people, engaging in critical thinking, and then taking disciplined action relentlessly aligned with the hedgehog concept. So the final step in the 6 steps is technology accelerator. And basically this means that good to great companies think about technology in a different way. They will invest in new technology only if it serves their hedgehog concept. And the behaviors of good to great companies around technology are these points you can see on the screen here. They view technology in light of their hedgehog concept. So they ask if a new technology fits with their hedgehog concept, and only if there is a fit will they invest in it. They become pioneers of technology aligned to their hedgehog concept. So they use technology to speed up the momentum they already have. And that's part of their disciplined approach to excelling at their hedgehog concept. The next one is they use technology in unique ways. And again, that stems from the hedgehog concept. And finally, they maintain a balanced view of technology. And that means that they view how technology is used as being far more important than adopting the latest technology or staying up with the latest trend. So there's another concept I want to cover before we wrap up, and that's the concept of the flywheel and doom loop. So let's start by taking another look at the flywheel we mentioned right back at the very start of this video. So imagine a very, very large flywheel, thousands of kilograms or thousands of pounds in weight. Now, to get it to spin, you're going to need to start pushing it. And as you begin to push, you might take, one single step of progress forward, then another step, and then another step. Now, a single push has no impact on the wheel. Even a singular, huge, massive push has no impact on the wheel. So as you first start to push, it seems almost impossible to turn, but you keep at it. You keep pushing it, and pushing it. And the more momentum you build up, the easier it gets, but you still need to keep pushing as hard as you can. Then at some point, as you run behind this giant flywheel, it takes on a life of its own, and it's spinning really fast and doesn't really need that much effort to spin. In fact, now it's actually really difficult to stop. And when this happens, you've achieved a good to great flywheel effect. You're taking consistent action in alignment with your hedgehog concept. You're then achieving some visible results, and this in turn energizes people, and momentum is easy to sustain without much effort. Now, a final thing to say here is the media is very obsessed with moments of breakthrough and moments of inspiration. But if someone came to you and inquired as to what was the one big push, the one big thing you did that make your flywheel spin so fast, what would you say? Well, you wouldn't be able to answer them. And that's because there was no singular thing you did that made a difference. It's about consistency over a very long period of time. Now, a key concept here is to realize that no single push makes a difference, no matter how Herculean the effort. So you have to be thinking about cumulative effects, not looking for the dramatic singular win. Now, let's contrast the flywheel loop with the doom loop. Now, the doom loop is the opposite, and it's how bad companies do things. They start with a great idea or a flash of brilliance, but then they work on it intermittently, giving only intermittent big pushes. And these huge efforts are absolutely exhausting. And over time, their intermittent nature leads to poor results. Now, this in turn causes the firm to switch to a new idea because the previous one didn't work out the way they'd hoped. And each time they switch idea, some momentum is lost. So these companies completely stop trying to create momentum. Instead, they're focused on having, one big breakthrough. And, 99 times out of 100, that breakthrough never comes. So the absolute key thing to remember in this flywheel analogy is that each push on the flywheel builds on all the previous thousands of pushes and moves you one step closer to going from good to great. So in summary, the key takeaway from good to great is discipline. It's all about discipline. Discipline. To go from a good organization to a great one, you need disciplined people, disciplined thought, and disciplined action. Now, disciplined people obviously means getting the right people and keeping them focused on excellence. Disciplined thought means being honest about the brutal facts and avoiding getting sidetracked. And disciplined action means understanding what is important to achieve and what isn't. So, the key to going from good to great is to get the right people on board, engaged in critical thinking, and then taking disciplined action aligned with the Hedgehog Concept. Now, overall, Good to Great is an absolute classic business book and one that I certainly recommend you read. Now, if you do read the book, you'll find lots of examples. Many of them will help bring the concepts we've discussed here to life. So overall, I definitely recommend reading it, and I would definitely give this book a score of 10 out of 10. So that's it for this book summary. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon.